be reasonable to come into a group and say, this is something my child needs, or if they're dealing with a specific diagnoses, what might work best in a situation like a co-op where it'd be a little more flexible, because a lot of people I know have been pulling their kids out of school, and the school situation, it works, why would I put them in a classroom setting? But maybe a co-op might be a little more flexible on that
Mhm.
end. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to talk about reasonable accommodations, what people can ask for and not ask for,
Yes.
Darren, from a
Yeah.
legal
Sure.
standpoint? And then I'll talk about the more practical suggestions too.
That sounds great.
Sounds
All
Okay.
right.
good.
So here's the thing. When I am advising at HSLDA, I'm usually on the other side here. I'm the one advising the co-ops. No, you don't have to do that. No, you're not legally required to do this. Um, I try and encourage them to be as flexible as possible. But as a general rule, most homeschool co-ops that you go to are not going to be subject to the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Right.
So there's a lot more negotiation and persuasion and asking rather than what you can do with a public school, which is walk in with a letter from a lawyer that, slap it down on the table.
Right.
Um, so reasonable accommodation is what the law says that the public accommodations are required to make, and those are going to be like your homeschool conferences and things like that. Your local co-op probably isn't going to be that way. That being said, most of the groups that I talk to actually want to help families with special needs students. It's just trying to figure out the best way to do that. Um, in my experience, and again, I'm kind of looking at it from the other side here, the groups that I have found that are kind of more the activity oriented, field trip, supplemental, they tend to be more flexible and willing to work with you than the ones that are academically rigorous, and they expect that, if you're coming in ninth grade, you had best already have 3 years of Latin before you come in, because they're not going to start you in a primer in ninth grade. That's at least my experience, and perhaps I'm tarring with too broad a brush here, but that's what I've seen. So, Faith, ideas on how you can do that negotiating and persuading?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a parent, so I can come at this from a parent, and then I can kind of come at this from having run co-ops and helped to start one, and start a private school that served homeschoolers. So, I mean, as a mom, I just think it's just, again, ask lots of questions and just be willing to be open and transparent and vulnerable. Can we have, a consultation, or can we meet ahead of time? I would like you to get to know my child a little better. These are, his strengths. These are his weaknesses. This is what we've done at home to help him. Is that possible? Or, how could you envision this working in the classroom setting? And giving them some simple ideas. I mean, you don't want to come in and be overbearing and demanding, and my kid needs this, and I need you to do this. I mean, it's you want to establish a good relationship and rapport, and
especially if you come from the public school, a lot of parents, that free and appropriate, education. they kind of have that mindset. I need to fight for what I need, and it's you need to have a much more gentle approach. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah. You catch more. What is it? You catch more flies with honey, or catch more whatever.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask for, can my student maybe have frequent breaks, or can they bring something in that helps them to feel comfortable? Again, maybe the co-op that you're really interested in does have a dress code of those khaki pants, or denim and a certain shirt, but you have a child with sensory that will not wear we had that in our co-op, and the child was allowed to wear black sweatpants because that's all he ever wore was sweatpants with a drawstring. That's fine, So I think co-ops need to be a little more flexible, and most of the time they are willing to work with parents. But asking for maybe like a sensory zone, or can we bring a visual? Could we bring a visual clock timer, or talking like Darren gave the example of his kids need more warning. They don't transition well. Well, neither does my son. It's like he goes into freak out mode. Using a visual schedule or some type of signal, let's establish some type of code or signal that, for the student, and maybe you don't even have to say anything, they learn, it's tap, tap 2 times on your right hand or your shoulder is your 10-minute warning. And then I'm going to come back in 5 minutes. So it's a lot of just collaborating and talking and sharing with one another. But those are some things that I think parents can do, but also as a teacher, just being willing to provide the fidgets, sensory things, letting students move around while they don't necessarily have to be sitting in a chair, or maybe the kid needs to have, bring their weighted blanket, or you need to allow them to use some type of assistive technology rather than, maybe it is an academically rigorous co-op and the student's able to do the work if they're allowed to use an assistive tech tool to get the work done. So maybe they can't do IEW writing where they're writing everything out and rewriting it and dressing it up, but they could type it or dictate it. So again, it's just a lot of collaborating and having those conversations with the teachers, and how can we modify this curriculum or what you've chosen to do to make it work for my student, because he really wants to participate here.